Bonjour and good afternoon. Welcome to WASA Distance Education Center and PLAR Science. So we are now on to week 4. So week 4 beginning this week, Monday, May 6th. And then we have another class on Wednesday, May 8th. So just a couple of reminders for PLAR Science. It's the Monday and Wednesday, and PLAR Math the 7th and the 9th. Make sure that you call your local DEC or contact Candace or Michelle if you want to register still for the 2023-24 school year. You can still sign up for IL. Also, we are offering IL courses for the summer, so there will be an IL 2024, and you should be getting a list of the courses available and the list of the teachers that are marking the courses. So stay tuned for that. All students are welcome to join the radio Zoom classes, and we are still holding the term to be draws. So students continue to submit work so that you can have your name entered for the draw or draws. One for completion. So if you complete a course, there's a prize for that. And then there's also for submitting work, you can have your name submitted for a chance to win a prize for that as well. So just a reminder that we will keep you informed once we confirm what the prizes will be for the term to be draws. Contacts for the office, you can call me at 1-800-667-3703. You can still email me. You can send me a message on my work Facebook. That's J. Mercer Wassa. My office hours schedule is available from your DEC, or you can find out from me, and you can also call me at home. So students that are submitting work, or if you're just getting started, here are some options. You can have your DEC fax it for you. You can have them scan, email it to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. We're asking students to make sure that you CC the work that you scan, email to the teacher so that we know you have submitted something, so that we are aware. Or if you want to, you can use your Notes app to scan, email your own work. You could also send a picture through Messenger, and this seems to be a popular option for students. And you can also drop it off at our WASA office. There is an outdoor mailbox on the side entrance, and you can see it's labeled mailbox. Make sure you put your name on your work so that we know who it came from. Remember, you submit your work as you complete them, so you don't have to wait to complete all 5 lessons for PLAR Science, or all 3 lessons for PLAR History, or all 2 lessons for PLAR Geography. Okay, as soon as you start working on your key questions, you can complete them for feedback. And if you're needing any help, make sure that you contact your teacher if you need to. Other support for you to complete the PLAR Science, the PLAR History, and Geography. You can access the videos or classes. You can go to YouTube, go to playlist. So once you go to J. Mercer Wassa, or if you need help with PLAR Math or PLAR English, then you can check out B. Osman Wassa. Also on the playlist, it will give you the different classes. So if you're working on your PLAR Geography, go to the PLAR Geography 2A playlist, or History, go to the PLAR History 2A playlist. If you're working ahead for the PLAR Science, you can go to the PLAR Science 1B and view the full playlist there. When you go to the classes, notice it is organized by the subject. So in this case, it goes PLAR Science, then by lesson number, so lesson 3, and then it also gives you the key questions. So if you're having problems with key question 47, go to PLAR Science, lesson 3, key questions 46 to 51. That means that key question 47 is in there. And if you don't want, or if you don't have Wi-Fi or internet, you can go, you can request for a USB of classes. And these classes, once you have them on the flash drive and insert them to a USB port, then you can view them on your laptop, television, Xbox, or PlayStation. So any device that supports or that has a USB port and supports this file, then you can watch those classes. If you have any problems with that, just let me know. So week 4, we are finishing up with lesson 2. And then we will start with lesson 3, chemistry. Okay, so if you don't have all the pages for your lesson 3 chemistry, make sure you contact me or the office so that we can get that to you. Remember, for the evaluation in each lesson, there are support questions and key questions. The key questions 1 to 80, so for lessons 1 to 5, that means you have to do them. You have to do the key questions. Support questions are for practice, and you don't need to send those to me because the answers are at the end of each lesson. The culminating activity, there are still students who have the culminating activity. Don't forget, you will not be granted your equivalent credit even though you completed all the lessons unless you complete the culminating. So if you have it, or maybe you have it and you lost it, just let me know and I could send it to the DEC, or I could send it directly to you so that you can complete it and return it. Okay, don't hang on to it and then not complete it. You will not get your equivalent credit that way. So this is the teacher comments or mark sheets to students. So if you submitted key questions already, you would have received a mark sheet. This helps you keep track of the key questions that you have completed and that I have marked. So we have key questions 1 to 26, or lesson 1, that's been completed in class. In lesson 2, we have as far as key question 35 completed. So for this afternoon, we will complete key questions 36 to 40, and that would be the end of lesson 2. Learning goal. So keep this in mind for this class. I can describe the process of cell division. So from our last class, we did page 13, life processes. So if you look back, what are the different life processes that all living organisms must have? So quick review on that. We have sensitivity, or here's one way to remember it. Just show it to you here. So if you do Mrs. GREN, so you have movement, respiration, you have sensitivity, and then for the last 4, So G for growth, R for reproduction, okay, E for excretion, I almost forgot that one, E for excretion, and then N for nutrition. Okay, so all living things must do these, okay, in order to survive. Okay, so that's one way of remembering. So Mrs. Gren, movement, respiration, sensitivity, and then you have growth, reproduction, excretion, and nutrition. Let's spell that properly there. Okay, nutrition. Okay, let's move on to cell division or mitosis. So have you ever wondered how an organism grows? Well, we've said earlier that there are trillions of cells in your body, and all of these cells started from a single cell or a fertilized cell. So every living organism must grow and reproduce. So neither growth nor reproduction, that can't happen unless you have cell division. So cell division is important, and all of the functions of cells are determined by the genetic information that's contained in the nucleus of each cell. So a couple of terms that you need to know. Chromosome, that's just a thread-like structure of DNA. We talked about DNA already, that carries genes. So the X or Y gene that determines whether you will be a boy or a girl is an example of a chromosome. So almost every human or every human cell has 23 pairs of chromosomes for a total of 46. Okay, so there are exceptions, but 23 pairs most common for a total of 46. So again, DNA is short for deoxyribonucleic acid. So the DNA is a complex molecule found in all plants and animals. So it's found in almost every cell of an organism's body, and it contains all the information necessary to keep that organism up and running, okay, or developing and producing. Genes, on the other hand, are short sections of DNA. So genes determine our traits like hair color, height, body type, basically other things that make a person unique. So genes also play a role in a person's risk for some diseases and health conditions. So each of us has about 24,000 different types of genes. Okay, next up is cell division. So you can see the chart. This is all complex organisms originated from a single cell. So we said that, so you can see it here. Every cell in your body started here. Through cell division, the numbers are then increased. Cell then specialize and change into their various roles. So for example, you have the egg and the sperm, and then you get the fertilized egg, and then it goes through a multiple cell divisions, and then after that, it goes through many different types of cells. So it could produce blood cells, bone cells, gland cells, nerve cells, and so on. The cell cycle. Cells undergo a process of growth which ends either in death or reproduction. Since the general stages of the cell cycle are the same for all cells, that's why it's been called the cell cycle, because it repeats. It has two main stages. The first stage is mitosis, which refers to the division of the nucleus and the genetic information that's contained inside the nucleus. And then the other stage is called interphase. Okay, so make sure you underline these. If you look at them, they're darker in your book. Okay, they're bolded. And interphase means is the stage of growth which happens between each division of the nucleus. Okay, so in the cell cycle, we said that organisms are constantly producing new cells. New cells are made so that the organism grows, and then new cells are also made to replace old dead cells. The process of making new cells is what's called cell division. Cell division is happening all the time. In the average human body, approximately 2 trillion cell division is happening daily. Okay, so you're not even feeling it, but it's happening. So 2 main methods of replication are mitosis and meiosis. So if you look at mitosis, this is the simple duplication of a cell and all of its parts. It duplicates its DNA into new cells, or what's called daughter cells. Okay, it has the same pieces and genetic code. So 2 identical copies come from 1 original. So you start with 1, get 2 that are the same. Similar to if you took a sheet of paper and you press photocopy, so you make a copy, and you're using the original, and then you ask for the photocopier to give you 2 identical copies. Okay, so remember, mitosis is a process that divides a single cell, so 1 cell, into 2 identical. Here's where you have worn out cells get replaced. Now most people confuse 2 terms, mitosis and meiosis, with each other, but in actuality they are different. Remember, mitosis forms 2 identical daughter cells, and meiosis comes from 4 non-identical daughter cells. So here's a Venn diagram, and if you recall, Venn diagram where you have 2 circles and they overlap. So the section where they overlap means that's where you have the similarities between the 2. So if you look at the left hand side, you have mitosis, and then on the right hand side, meiosis, and then where it overlaps, that's where you have the similarities for both mitosis and meiosis. So what's the same for both? Well, they occur both in plants and animals. They start with a diploid parent cell. It produces new cells. The cells undergo DNA replication, and basically they follow the same basic steps. So remember the differences. Mitosis produces 2 daughter cells, whereas the meiosis produces 4. Okay, so remember, one has 2 and the other one has 4. In mitosis, daughter cells are genetically identical. In meiosis, the daughter cells are genetically different. So if you mark same for mitosis on the right hand side, it's different. In mitosis, it creates a human cell with 46 chromosomes. This one creates a human cell with 23 chromosomes. Okay, so remember, meiosis is for sexual reproduction. Mitosis involves 1 cell, whereas meiosis involves 2 successive cell divisions. Mitosis creates all body cells like blood cells, whereas meiosis creates only sex or germ cells like sperm cells. Mitosis is for growth and maintenance, and meiosis occurs only in plants, animals, and fungi. Okay, so mitosis is for all organisms except viruses. Okay, so why do we have cell division? Well, eventually cells need to duplicate. So it needs to divide for the following reasons. The first one is growth. Okay, all cells need to grow. So it will increase in number of cells. So in individual organisms, it takes place by mitosis from the fertilized egg to death. The second reason is replacement. So many cells are routinely replaced in organisms. So the replacement of cells is done by mitosis. So for example, we replace the cells that line our digestive tract every 1 to 3 days. Okay, the third reason is repair and maintenance. So for example, if you cut yourself, so notice there that person has a small cut. So repair and maintenance, that's what it's used for. It replaces damaged cells or tissues whenever possible. This includes regeneration of lost parts of some organisms. Okay, not all, but some organisms can regenerate. And finally, reproduction. So cells divide to create new organisms. So in cell division, it's also necessary to reproduce multicellular organisms. So if you remember right at the beginning, we said what are some examples of multicellular organisms? So if you wrote multicellular, it could be dogs, could be cats, people, okay, trees are also multicellular, okay, mushrooms, these are all multicellular organisms. Okay, we're now going to look at, so if you're following along, what I want you to do is turn to page 16. So right after it says reasons for cell division. Okay, on page 16 you will see this heading. It says the process of cell division. So mitosis is important because it makes sure that all new cells are generated in a given organism will have the same number of chromosomes and genetic information. So we're going to look at each of the phases, or also if you want to call it stages. If you don't want to use phases, P-H-A-S-E-S, you can say stages. So the 4 phases or stages are prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. So if you want to remember that using clue, you can use PMAT. So P for prophase, and then M-A-T, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Okay, it's just an acronym for the phases of a cell's existence. So mitosis has 1 division, and meiosis has 2. So we went over that. Meiosis happens when it's time to reproduce, so when it's time to make a new organism. So there are 5 basic phases in a life cycle of a cell. So here again, we have meiosis is a cell division to make sex cells or gametes. It will produce 46 chromosomes, and then when you split it, each sex cell has 23. So when the sex cells, so the sperm and the egg, meet, they will make a total of 46. Okay, that's just adding it. So that first cell may potentially become a baby. Okay, so that's how that goes. Okay, so now let's look at each phases. So first of all, we have to look at interphase, because before a cell can reproduce, it has to perform a variety of activities just so that it can get ready. So the stage of the cell cycle when a cell is preparing itself to duplicate is called interphase. Because there's so many things that are happening in the cell at this time, most of the cell's life is spent in this stage. Okay, so interphase, this is your prepping, so your preparation. So key concepts: the cell spends 90% of its life in interphase. During interphase, the cell prepares for cell division, which means it's preparing for cell growth and DNA replication. Okay, another term is the word chromosomes. These are the things that make organisms what they are. So they carry all the information that's used to help a cell grow, thrive, and reproduce. So chromosomes are made up of DNA, so segments of DNA in specific patterns, which we said earlier are called genes. So for example, determines your height, your eye color, okay, even certain diseases that you would be predisposed of, that's all part of your genes. Your genes make who you are, so you will find the chromosomes and genetic material in the nucleus of a cell. Okay, so you can see the pictures right at the bottom of the slide. Okay, so we are going to go through each of these stages. Okay, let's start with prophase. So during prophase, so remember we will use the acronym PMAT. So now we're using the word P for prophase. So during this phase, the first phase of mitosis, the duplicated chromosome condenses. That means it gets smaller and becomes visible. However, the nuclear membrane disappears and the nucleolus disappears. So we said it has to get everything ready. You need to duplicate DNA. You need to get certain pieces in the right position and generally prepare the cell for the process of mitotic division. Okay, so you can see it there. You can see how it's separating. Okay, so that's the first part. This P for prophase. Okay, let's look at the second is metaphase. Okay, so now we're looking at the PMAT again. Okay, we did P, now we're on M, metaphase. Now all the pieces are aligning themselves for the big split. So if you watch on the slide here, you can see how it's all lining up. The chromosomes are aligned at the equator of the cell. They're getting ready for the big split. The DNA lines up along a central axis, or if you want to use equator. And the centrioles, they send out specialized tubules that connect to DNA. They now condensed into chromosomes. 2 strands of a chromosome are connected at the center with something called centromere. Okay, so now they're actually connecting to the centromere, not the DNA. So you can start looking at here. So remember, we started with interphase, prophase, now this is metaphase. So they lined up across the center. The spindle fibers attach to the center of each chromosome. Next is anaphase. So here we go. The separation is beginning. Half of the chromosomes are pulled to one side of the cell and half go the other way. So when the chromosomes get to the side of the cell, it's time to move on to telophase. Okay, so you see how it goes to each side. They're splitting. each half is pulled to the opposite side of the cell. So that's P, M, A. Okay, now we need the last one, is T. Telophase. Now the division is finishing up. This is the time when the cell membrane closes in and splits the cell in two pieces. So you can see the big split. You have two separate cells, each with half of the original DNA. So chromosomes cluster in the center of each new cell, the nuclear membrane begins to form, and the cells begin to separate. Okay, so that's telophase. Okay, and then finally, one last term that you have to learn for this lesson is the word cytokinesis. So once the cell has undergone the four phases, so you have prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase, that means the process is near being complete, and you have one more step that's left to make sure the production of two new daughter cells. Okay, so remember, this only happens after mitosis and is different in plant and animal cells. Or you can use this definition. Cytokinesis is the process after the splitting of the nuclear chromosomes. During this process, the cytoplasm and the cell membrane split. So that's the main thing here, is that they do split, and then it results in two daughter cells. The cells are pinched apart, and you have two separate daughter cells. So in animal cells, this is what happens. So in animal cells, the cell membrane pinches and it forms a cleavage furrow into two daughter cells, so each with one nucleus. Okay, that's what happens in animal cells. In plant cells, this is what happens. For plant cells, the vesicles holding the cell wall material line up in the middle, and then it fuses into a cell plate which separates the new cells. So you can tell, so each is fused into a cell plate, but you can still see the line. So cell walls are formed adjacent to the equator. So that's the difference between cytokinesis for plant cells and cytokinesis for animal cells. So now we can finish lesson 2 by doing key questions 36 to 38. So let's do that now. So remember to answer your questions in a complete sentence. You can use the spaces that I have provided for you. A lot of students are using their own pages or separate sheets of paper. That's fine. Just make sure that you label it. So if you're answering key question 36, write down 36. You don't have to write down the questions. I already have the questions. So if you write or label your answers, so write down 36, identify 4 reasons that is necessary for cells to divide. So this, I'm just asking you for the list. So why do, or why is it necessary for cells to divide? There are 4 reasons why. Okay, I'll give you the first one. The first one is that all cells need to grow, so for growth. And then you can give me number 2, 3, and 4. Key question 37, what is meiosis? Okay, this is a hand question, meaning that you can put your hand or your finger on the answers. So look for the term meiosis in your lesson book. Meiosis means, so tell me what it means or what it's about. Key question 38, why is interphase important to the cell cycle? So I'm just asking you, why is it needed? So interphase is important. So tell me why that is important. Then finally, or not finally, second last question, list the 4 major phases of mitosis and indicate what happens in each of the phases. Okay, so 2 parts. You tell me what they are, and then you tell me what happens in each stage. Remember, you only need to provide a brief description. So if you remembered the acronym PMAT, this will make it a lot easier for you. So prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And just a brief description. Okay, now I can say finally. So this is the last key question for lesson 2. What is cytokinesis? So straightforward. Again, you can find the answer. You just look for that term. It's bolded or it's darker than the rest of the words in your book. So cytokinesis means, and then you just write down what it means. Okay, so that's it for lesson 2. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start with lesson 3. Okay, and your lesson 3 looks like this. If you don't have the version that has 2023, 2024, and you have started your key questions using the older version, that's fine. Okay, do not throw away your key questions. Submit what you have. Okay, I will accept if you have, let's say if you have the 2022, 2023, okay, that's fine as well. You just let me know. So again, if you have a question or concern, so if you say I have the 2021, 2022, let me know how many you have completed in the key questions. There's no need for you to redo everything. So let's say you completed lesson 1 using an older version, then I will give you or have you start the next lesson moving forward with a newer version. Okay, so in lesson 3, again, you have to complete the key questions. That's in lesson 3. There are 24 key questions, beginning with key question 41, ending with key question 43. There's a total of 102 marks in key question 3 in lesson 3. Same thing for lessons 1 and 2. The support questions are just for practice. When you do them, you can check if your answers are correct. You don't have to submit them for marking, and it's the key questions that you need to send out either by fax, by email. If you want to scan it, make sure you send it to student work and then CC it to the teacher that's marking your work. Okay, let's look at the different headings for chemistry. On page 3, you will come across particle theory. On page 4, states of matter. Page 5, change of state. Page 7, classification of matter. Okay, so let's look how many of these headings we can look at before our time is up for this afternoon. Learning goals. Again, keep this in mind. First one is I can explain the statements. So statements, the other word that you can use, the word statement, could be sentences, okay, of the particle model. Secondly, I can understand how matter is classified, meaning how is it grouped into pure substances and mixtures. So that's the two groupings or two kinds. They're either pure substances or they're mixtures. So if we look at, if you look around you and you see the blinds, the clothes, the food that you eat or eating, even the air that you're breathing, your computer, your pens, even the places where you live, where you work. So if you look at all that, what do they have in common? Is that these are all examples of matter. Okay, and matter just means that it is anything that has mass and occupies space. It doesn't have to be living. Okay, it just needs to have mass and it occupies space. So understanding how matter is composed or made of and how it changes will help you to make good decisions about whether to use, say for example, new products. So these are the ideas in the subject area of chemistry. Okay, so remember, matter is anything that occupies space, possesses mass. Also, it can be felt by one or more of our senses. So if you look at the examples, milk, okay, that's example of matter. Well, you can taste it by using one of your senses, and if it's sour, you can certainly smell it. Okay, and you could also see it. Okay, when you pour it out, you can hear it. Same thing with Coke, Bell, probably hearing it. Balloons, you can see it, you can hear it, especially if you pop it. Pear, books, hot air balloon, pen. Okay, so all that are examples of matter. As I said, matter can be living or non-living, so it doesn't have to be alive. It can be solid, liquid, or gas. So these are the three states. They are all made of atoms and molecules, and we're going to look at those terms more closely. They all have mass and take up space. They are all stuff, so anything that takes up space and have mass, so you can look at all around, look at all the different things around you. Okay, that's matter. Okay, if you want to follow along in your book, we're still on page 3. Okay, so page 3, chemistry is the study of chemicals and their reactions. Chemicals are the foundation of everything around you, including life. So if you think about it, chemistry is a bit like cooking. You have different ingredients, they're combined in creative ways before you get to the final product. But as all cooks know, you can't cook properly until you know your ingredients. You have to know what you're going to put in there and then how your ingredients will react with each other. So for example, if you were making something and instead of putting salt, you put sugar. Okay, so it will make a difference on how your final product will taste like. If you're wanting it to be salty, it won't be salty, it'll be sweet because you put sugar in there instead of salt. All food and medicines are chemicals, as are your clothes. In fact, it's hard to name something in your life that's not a chemical. Okay, one way to remember the meaning of chemistry, we're looking at the study of composition so CO. We're looking at structure. So composition is the amount of chemical in any chemical product. Structure, that just tells you the arrangement of chemicals in a substance. PR is properties, so behavior of chemical. And finally, INT is interaction, so the reaction between substances with another substance. So if you look at Twizzlers or bubblegum or gummy bears, if you look at what they all have in common, they are all considered candy, but they also have chemicals present in the ingredients. Any of the preservatives that we have in our food, they are all chemicals. So chemicals are an important part of almost everything in our life. So the last topic we're going to look at is the particle theory, and the particle theory is on page 3. So remember that a theory is just an idea that helps us to explain the world around us. So science always uses models to help explain behavior. So the model for matter is the particle model. And the particle model is made up of 5 statements. The first one tells us that all matters, that means all the stuff that you see that's around you, is made up of tiny particles. Even the train that's making all that sound, it's made up of tiny particles, even though it's big. So you can see the chalk there. Okay, you can't see it, but it's made up of all these tiny particles for it to become chalk. The second theory is that all particles of one substance are the same. So that means if it's all solid substances, it's the same particle, it's all liquid, or it's all gas. If you have different substances, they are made of different particles. Okay, so that's just pretty straightforward. If it's made of all purple dots, then to create neon gas, then different substances are made of different particles. So neon gas is not the same as oxygen gas, and it's not the same as ammonia, because they all have different particles. Okay, number 4, all particles, or the particles, are always moving. The more energy the particles have, the faster they move. So you can see that if it's colder, so notice the different temperature. This is hot, this is cold, and let's say this is average. So the hotter it is, provides more energy. The particles are moving faster. Okay, and then the last one, and then we'll review this when we come back on Wednesday. There are attractive forces between particles. So particles far apart, their force is weak. The particles close together, that means the forces are strong. Okay, so I want you to continue reading page 3 in your lesson 3 chemistry, and then we'll do a bit of a review before we continue with the rest of the lesson 3 lesson. Okay, that's it for today, and I will talk to you again on Wednesday. Miigwech.